It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the USF Sioux Falls assistant swimming coach, Coach Ann Moore. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching and college swimming?
Yeah, so I was a swimmer my pretty much my entire life. Started swimming at a really young age. I had some siblings who are in the sport, and so I just kind of it just was easy to get into it. And then, I swam all through high school, all through college. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to kind of do as a career. I just kind of knew I always wanted to help people. And so I actually was going to go on and get my master's in social work. Um, but I had visited my alma mater's like conference swim meet with some of my old teammates, and the atmosphere and the fun that I was seeing on the pool deck, it was this immediate like response of that's what I want to be doing and that's where I want to be for the rest of my life. Like I'm meant to be on the pool deck and I'm meant to be with student athletes from all over, and that's I'm meant to help them in both the world of swimming and also the world of life. So that was kind of like the one moment where I was like, yep, I want to be a coach.
What was it like going to college and getting to compete in collegiate swimming?
That is probably one of the biggest accomplishments that I know that I hold on, that I'm proud of, like having on my shoulders. It is not easy being a collegiate athlete. And swimming is a different animal. We don't have a lot of people who know a lot about swimming. So it's exciting to like be on a podcast and be able to expose swimming a little bit more. But it was, those you get caught up in the day to day of, oh, I don't want to go to morning practice. I don't want to go to morning practice. I don't want to work hard. I don't want to do this. I like, ugh, practice again. And then the 4 years, or now with COVID, 5 years, some of these student athletes have, it goes by so quickly, and you really don't know what you have until it's gone. And so it was, up until this point of my life, it has been single-handedly the best accomplishment that I've ever had.
Of course, as a freshman, what was that moment like the first time you got to put on your collegiate swim cap?
That was, honestly, I still remember a lot of those little things. It was a rush of adrenaline. It was a fear of the unknown. It was this new and exciting thing. And there was also a little bit of pressure. I don't know if it was necessarily intentional or not. I was a pretty good backstroker coming in, and so there was pressure that I put on myself to, perform well and as a first year. And but more than anything else, that first year was probably one of the most fun years that I've ever had in the world of swimming.
Of course, competing, what was that like being a two-time NCAA qualifier?
It was interesting. I think a lot of times people are caught up in the, oh my gosh, you went as a freshman, and oh my gosh, like that's so cool, that's so exciting, and it is, and it was a huge accomplishment, and to have that as a first year is amazing. But then when I went back again my senior year, it was one of those things where I just go, oh, I didn't really realize this about nationals, and I didn't notice this, and I was so young to appreciate this. Even just the 3 year gap or 2 year gap between going, it was like, oh wow, like I learned and I grew so much within those 2 times of going to nationals. And it's really cool to be able to say that I went on the bookend years. My first year, I just kind of let go of the pressure and decided to just have fun and welcome all of the new experiences. And I am 100% convinced that that is part of the reason why I made it to nationals and I swam so well. And my senior year, I was not named captain. And so I just kind of was like, you know what, we're just going to go out and we're going to swim. And I've got 1 year left. Like, let's see what we can do and let's have some fun with it. And that was then when I qualified again for nationals in a much better position going in. But it was just, it was that fun atmosphere of just kind of letting go and being able to go. And, I wish more student athletes understood that kind of piece of things instead of the pressure. But it was something really special to be able to say that I am a 2 time national qualifier. And, it's hard to not just like brush it off because I'm coaching athletes who are, you know, 12th in the nation and are second team All-American. And so, and at a Division II school, and I went to a Division III school. And so it's very easy to just kind of brush off that accomplishment, but it is a really, really cool thing to say and something that I'm extremely proud of.
What was that like, obviously being the first women to go into the national NCAA competitions?
So it was so my freshman year when I went, I was the only female from my school that went. And there were eight other boys. So I swam on a team that was also men's and women's. And there were 8 other boys that I went with. So it was me and 8 boys traveling down to North Carolina. And it was really cool. But it was one of those things where again, I think I might have been a little bit too young to appreciate how big of a deal that was. But as a freshman, when you do all these things and you get all this attention, you're like, oh, this is so cool. But you get so caught up in the attention piece of it. And I will admit that some of that attention went to my head as a first year. And, I had an amazing coach who brought me right back down from that cloud. And it was great. But I think for me, it's one of those things where it's yes, you can records are meant to be broken, but that piece of history is something that people can't take away from me. Not that anybody would try, but records break and there's a new record holder, and but to be able to say that I was, the first female first year in the MIAA to qualify for the NCAA meet it's a big accomplishment. And I have to remember that it's okay to celebrate it sometimes, even though I'm done. Even though I'm retired, it's still okay to celebrate it. So
Of course, coming out of college, what was that experience like getting into college coaching and getting your first collegiate coaching job?
yeah, so I had a really I feel like I kind of had like I eased into it a little bit because I went and got my master's from Ithaca College in sports psychology. And I was their graduate assistant. So I kind of got like a nice way of like easing into the coaching world. And there were ups and downs with Ithaca just because I was so close in age to the team that it was hard to kind of be like, hey, I'm your coach, but also we have there were a couple times where I ran into a couple people in a class. And so it was like this difference of relationship. And so it made it a little bit challenging to navigate. But it was an amazing experience and their facilities were beautiful. the biggest thing I took away from Ithaca was that relational piece of things. And it was really the first time that I had seen firsthand what the big mental health crisis is doing to student athletes and specifically in the swimming world. And so it made me very, very, very grateful that I was getting my master's in such a great line of work so that I could help out with that side of mental health. And at Ithaca, it was the first time that I really got to help some swimmers who were struggling. And I still stay in contact with them to this day. So.
Of course, what was that experience like going to Ithaca and becoming a full-time assistant coach?
So at Ithaca, I only was allowed to work a certain amount of hours because I was still technically a student. Um, but I was at every afternoon practice and it was in the middle of COVID as well. And so we weren't practicing as much anyway. Um, but I think the biggest challenge for me was that I didn't have a ton of exposure into writing practices or writing like a season plan. So that was definitely something that I was looking forward to for my first like full-time assistant coaching position. Um, and so it was kind of a shock, being a student and also then trying to coach as well and having like really learning what it takes for student athletes to listen to you and to buy into what you're saying is that was kind of the start of learning that process at Ithaca. So it was good.
What was that experience like when you did get that first full-time assistant coaching job?
It was awesome. I still remember my interview process very, very thoroughly. We did, again, because of COVID, we did 2 or 3 Zoom interviews. And I was actually still finishing up my master's while I was interviewing. And I interviewed on a Friday. My last interview was on a Friday, and they called me on a Monday and offered me the job. And it was one of those times where it was really cool. I was in the basement of my parents' house, and I had just woken up, and the head coach from Oberlin called me and offered me the position. And we talked through some details, but one of the biggest things that I was happy about was that my master's classes weren't done until July. So I couldn't move until July, and they were okay with it, and they were very accommodating to that, which was really great. And it was a small Division III school in Ohio, and it was a really good experience. One of the biggest things I'll take away from it was that 2 days into season, the head coach's wife had a baby, and he took 5 weeks of paternity leave. And so I had a very brief 5-week crash course into what it looked like to be a head coach. And it was very profound, the things that I learned and the things that I took away from it and just kind of said, yeah, I want to do this, or no, I don't think I want to do this when I have my own program. And so it was a really good experience. There was, like I said, with any experience, there's the ups and the downs and the roller coaster of emotion, especially in the line of work that we're in. But overall, it was really exciting to be like, okay, this is my first big time, like real girl, like big girl job. So it was really cool.
Of course, during that time when you were that interim head coach, what was that experience like learning and knowing, okay, maybe one day I could become a head coach?
Yeah, so for me, the head coach gig has always kind of been the end goal. Locking and securing that big time head coaching job, or just big time coaching job would be great. So that head coaching is kind of where I want to end up. So it was really unique to be able to have 5 weeks where it's like, okay, this is what it takes. And during those 5 weeks, I think I might have drank like 72 ounces of coffee every day. So probably not great. And I was working like all hours of the day. But it was really great to just kind of go, okay, like the recruiting process. How do I want to do my recruiting process? And how do I want to, do team bonding and team culture things on campus? And so having that crash course was, I think, extremely important for my professional, journey.
What was that experience like getting to come to Sioux Falls and become the assistant swimming coach?
It's been an amazing experience. It's far away from home, which is something that I was a little bit apprehensive about. Um, but I did my first two interviews over Zoom, and then I came out here, and I did an in-person interview, and I took a tour of the school, and I met people, and I just kind of, at the end of my first day, I called my parents up, and I called my old swim coach, and I said I don't want to go anywhere else. Like, this is where I want to be for the next little bit of my life. So it was really awesome to come so far away and to feel so at home so quickly.
Was that experience like getting to visit the campus and falling in love with it, and obviously, as you said, calling it your next home?
Yeah, it sometimes if I think about it still, it gives me chills. It's been it was one of those things where as I was on campus, it was checking all my boxes. And then it was checking boxes that I didn't know I had. It's the everyday being able to just kind of make a cup of coffee in our office and going into my boss's office and saying, "Hey, like, how was your night? How was your weekend?" Having that relational piece of things, and just that was the biggest thing I noticed here, was that sense of community and just that sense that everybody cares about each other here. Um, and so that was like, once I felt that, I was like, okay, like I could do this.
What does a typical swim meet look like for Sioux Falls?
Yeah, so when we get to our swim meets, typically, because everywhere, if we have to travel, everywhere is so far away, that we try our best not to. And so we'll stay in town a lot for our season. Midco Aquatic Center is our home pool, and we're pretty spoiled with that pool. So but a normal meet, if it's like a Saturday meet, we'll wake up, we'll have breakfast as a team together, and then we'll head to the pool, and they'll be warming up, and we'll take them through a structured warm up, and they do a team dynamic warm up before they get into the water. And then once they're in the water, they're doing what they need to do. And most times you will find me on the side of the pool deck helping them get warmed up, and or running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to make sure that everything is in place and ready to go, and helping out as much as I can. But then, once we're warmed up, we get out, we do a cheer as a team, and the meet start. And our expectations of our team is that they are on the side of the pool deck cheering for their team. If they're not behind the block, they're up and next to the pool cheering. So it's very fast paced, it's very crazy, it's very loud, but it's a lot of fun.
What has that atmosphere been like? Obviously, as you said, having your home swim meet at a facility versus on campus.
There are some really awesome things about having the pool not run by us. There are also some like more challenges that come from that. Scheduling purposes, we're locked into our schedule at you or at Midco, and sometimes that's amazing because it's like, okay, we have the pool from this time. Like, we don't have it any other time, so we're gonna make the most of it. But then there's also times where it's like, over Labor Day weekend, we're swimming. And so it's like, we wish that we could just be like, okay, let's just go an hour later. But in order to do that, we have to, it's just more of a process to be able to do that. But like when it comes to swim meets, we're not putting the pads in the water, like we're not setting up, we're not breaking down. So it's really nice to kind of just show up to the pool and they have everything ready to go, and then be able to leave at the end of the meet and just kind of not have to stress about that kind of stuff. It's really nice to be able to do that.
As a college coach, what has that transition been like from when you were a swimmer and you were in the pool swimming versus now on the pool deck getting to coach them?
Yeah, there are, I definitely have certain aspects of coaching on the pool deck that I like a lot more than others. And I like coaching the 200 backstrokers because that was my favorite event. And so it's, you know, getting to coach and see different aspects outside of the water that I didn't necessarily see inside of the water is really cool. So it's like, you notice things about the stroke that you never noticed before. And also like I've learned a lot about different strokes as well. I was not ever a breaststroker. That was the last event I was ever supposed to be in because I was so bad at it. And, we had our breaststroker this year, our 200 breaststroker. She won the NSIC championship in the 200 breast. She went to nationals and placed 12th. And, she broke a school record this year. And, I am, it's so cool to be able to learn about breaststroke from such an incredible breaststroker. So it's really cool to kind of learn things away from, what I necessarily enjoyed in swimming. But it is also fun to remember some of those harder practices and then making them do it and going, ha ha ha, like I remember that practice. So it's a lot of fun.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've helped to build for the Sioux Falls swimming program?
Yeah, this is something we say to our recruits all the time. We are a family through and through, and you hear that about every program, everywhere. Doesn't matter the sport, every coach will say that to recruits. And I say it to recruits, but I also follow it up with that. And I always say, if you have siblings or parents, you get it. You don't always like them, but you always love them and you always respect them and you always have their back and you're always in their corner. And that's really honestly the best way I can explain or express our team is we don't always get along, but families don't always get along, and that's okay. We do a lot of work on conflict resolution. And so if there is ever any conflict, we work through it together and we come out the other side of it better and stronger as a team. We've done some really fun things as a group this year. Every fall we've helped out at the Sioux Falls Marathon, cheering people on. So we do a big volunteer opportunity there, and we always kickstart our year with a cookout. And so this past year we did our cookout in McKinnon Park, and it's really just to kind of break bread and have fellowship together before the season starts. And then throughout the season, we try and do some team building activities. We'll go this past year, we went on a training trip. And so we were able to do a bunch of team bonding things there. We did a week-long scavenger hunt, and, they were all put into groups and things like that. But I think a lot of times one of the things that's not talked about when we talk about culture is the vulnerability piece. And this past year, I noticed on my team and with the group of ladies that we have here that there was another kind of there was a little bit of apprehension to be vulnerable this year, but once they decided to be vulnerable, it was this eye-opening experience for them. And so it's as we keep going, I think for me, it's hitting that key part of you're in a safe place and this is a time to be vulnerable with your teammates. And if we can do that, then it's going to help the culture. It's never going to hurt the culture if we're vulnerable with each other. So, team culture and stuff like that, that's kind of one of my favorite parts of favorite aspects of my job, even though it can be quite challenging sometimes. Just we represent 7 or 8 different countries on our team. And so you have so many different perspectives and, thoughts. And so it's really kind of cool to see all of these different thoughts and processes and perspectives and cultures come together onto our team.
Of course, what is that experience like, as you said, having 7 different countries represent Sioux Falls swimming program?
Yeah, so it's something that I had never experienced. I never experienced such a big base of international swimmers, and it is such a cool thing. We've got this year we have obviously the US, we have Canada, we have Poland, Italy, Ecuador, we have South Africa. I'm forgetting one, Belgium, and there was one more. It's on the tip of my tongue, and my swimmers are gonna lose it on me if I forget. That might be it. I don't know, but we've had so many, and we have a German coming next year, and we're really excited about it. But the international aspect of things, it really kind of brings it brings a different atmosphere to the pool deck a little bit and to the team. Um, and it's been really fun to kind of watch that unfold. There are definitely some challenges to it. They have to adjust to the fact that we swim in short course yards. And, most times in Europe, especially, they are swimming long course meters or long course yards, or sorry, long course meters or short course meters. So they're either swimming 25 meters or 50-meter pools. And so that adjustment from meters to yards it can be challenging sometimes for them. So that's the biggest challenge, but it's so cool. This year I've been able to learn all these different kind of languages between, anything from Dutch to Spanish to Italian to Polish, like all these things it's really cool.
Who are some of the conference teams that you face in your conference?
So we swim against Augustana University. They're in the same city. We swim against SMSU, Southern Minnesota State University, University of Mary. Um, we've got Mankato State. We've got St. Cloud. We've got, oh gosh, I'm gonna blank on some of them. CSP, Concordia St. Paul. We've got Moorhead. We've got, I feel like there's another purple school in there, but I can't remember. So I think there's 8 of us, 7 or 8 of us. So
Of course, what is that like getting to compete against some of those schools like St. Mount Mary's, Mercer, and different schools in your conference?
yeah, so Augustana always puts up such a good fight with us. They've got so many talented swimmers on their team. And so, but we put up our own sometimes. Most times they have a much bigger team than we do. So sometimes it really just comes down to they've got more people, which is okay. Um, so that's really good exposure to have another amazing team in the same city. And then, Mankato State is such a powerhouse. So it's a great experience every time we go up against them. They've got an amazing backstroker who, she only ever makes our backstrokers better. And St. Cloud and Moorhead, they've got their standouts, and U Marion, they've got their standout. Like everybody has their standouts, and so there's good competition from most schools in our conference. I would say there's at least one good competition off of every single team we swim against. Northern is the one that I was forgetting. Northern State. We swim against them as well up in Aberdeen.
What does that recruitment process look like for prospective swimmers?
Yeah, so we always have a recruit form that can be filled out on our website. Most times if a recruit fills out that form, we get an email saying, hey, this person, this is their times, this is, what this person wants to study, things like that. And so we'll take a look at what their times are, what they want to study. Because if we don't have their major, sometimes it's not worth our time to be recruiting somebody who doesn't have, who can't study what they want to study. And Chris and myself, the head coach, we are very much of the opinion that the school has to come first. It will always be top priority of our student athletes. And so if we don't have a major, then it doesn't really make sense to be recruiting that person. So then from there, we will most times throw them on, like, let's say that we do have their major, we'll throw their email on our emailing list. And we send out weekly emails, kind of letting them know about our program. And then really depending upon people's response and consistency in responding to us, we will set up a phone call. From there, we'll do check-ins mostly, like usually we do check-ins weekly with our top recruits. Every other week, who knows, really depending upon our schedule and where we're at during season. But we'll stay in touch and really try and stay at the top of most people's list. And then we really try and also talk to parents before we get student athletes on campus. We feel it's really important to be recruiting not only the student athlete, but the family as well, because that's one of our big core values is family. And so we want to make sure that, our student athletes, our potential student athletes, parents and families know that we've got them for the next 4 years. So we're going to do what we can to take care of them and help support them over those 4 years. So we'll do a parent phone call. Typically it's a Zoom, and then we'll try and get them on campus. And if we can get them on campus, we'll take them through a kind of a day in the life as a student athlete. So they'll be able to see classes, meet with professors, take a campus tour, come to practice, kind of observe practice. And then, after their visit, we'll check in with them and kind of see how they liked it. And if they tell us that they love it, we're like, okay, what's your timeline? Like, we make it very much they are directing their recruiting process because, it's up to them. It's the individual, and we want to make sure that we're following what they need and not necessarily what we want. Because it's their timeline and it's the biggest decision that they have made up until this point in their life. And so we want to make sure that we're being supporters and not dictators.
Of course, what is it like seeing those prospective student athletes fall in love with the campus and then when they become freshmen, get to put on that cap for the first time?
Yeah, so I'm excited. This next fall will be the first time that I will have helped recruit a student athlete and being able to see them as a first year. So for the last couple springs, the people that I've recruited, I haven't been able to see because I've gotten new jobs. So, I'm not really sure what that feels like yet. I'm really excited to experience it. I will say it's really fun to see student athletes come on campus and just fall in love with this place. It's really cool. And it's really cool to also be like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, that's why I fell in love with this place as well. And this is why I came here. And it helps me relate to the student athletes a little bit more during the recruiting process as well. But I'm really excited for this fall when I get to see my first group of freshmen put that swim cap on for the first time and jump in the pool for the first time as a USF swimmer.
As a coach, what is it like seeing those swimmers get to achieve those great accomplishments throughout their career?
Oh man, it's emotional. It's a really cool thing to be a part of. And we as coaches, we try our hardest not to give credit to ourselves because it's not us putting the work in, it's the student athletes. But I will say there is kind of just a warm feeling inside that it's like, okay, I got to help bring that swimmer up. Our athlete this past year who qualified for nationals and ended 12th in the nation, it was awesome. It was so cool to see her swim at such a large stage. Being able to go to Indianapolis and swimming in the natatorium at IUPUI, and it is a really cool thing as a coach. And I will say it's also one of those things where, for me as a coach, it's not necessarily the best swimmers that are going to nationals that it feels good to be, cheering them on. It's the swimmers that doubted themselves all year and then at the end of the year have these amazing swims and get out and go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I could do that. And just seeing their face and being able to hug them and all the tears that come with it as well. It's so much fun. And it's really cool to also be able to say, I knew you could do it. Like I knew that was in you this entire time. Like, how awesome. Like this is so cool. So it's a different experience and a different feeling than I've really ever felt before, but it's an awesome one. And it's awesome to be able to be just as excited for somebody who had a huge time drop as it is to be so excited for somebody who broke a record. It's, as a coach, it's important to be, and it's my favorite part of my job, is to be excited about every single swimmer's success in their own definition of success.
What are some of your future plans for the program moving forward?
For USF specifically, we are working towards having a national caliber team. So this past year we only had one swimmer go, and we are really excited to become a national team. So we're excited for next year when we have some new swimmers coming in, and we're hopeful that we can get some more to nationals next year. Our other goal is to always have the best GPA in Division II. for swimming. So, we set academic goals more than anything else, but then also we just want everybody to swim faster. That's the end of the at the end of the day in the world of swimming, that's what you want. But I think one of the biggest things is for me is, as I look forward to this program, we're still so new. I just really want to create a rich history in bringing the best people on this team and creating the best kind of hard workers and the most dedicated swimmers. So for me personally, as a coach, my goal for this program is to just have the best people graduating out of USF swimming every single year and to be able to create such a rich history of swimming at USF so that it's when people look at our school, they go, oh yeah, their swimming program. I want to be a part of that.
What advice would you give those high school athletes that are looking to compete in collegiate swimming?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For those prospective student athletes, I think um, one of the biggest things that like biggest pieces of advice that I always give every recruit is make sure you love the school. In our sport, heaven forbid somebody gets injured and they can't swim, you have to make sure that you love the school first. Because if you can't swim and you're not on the team, or you just something happens and you're not on the team, you got to make sure you still love the campus, you still love the people, you still love your professors and all the things you're learning. So that's kind of like the biggest thing that I always tell recruits. But before you even talk to a coach, always do your research on the school. Come up with a couple questions that are in depth for the coach. It makes it more conversational when prospective student athletes have very specific questions about the team or the school or about, some of the best conversations I've had are when student athletes want to know about my knowledge of the sport, because they're testing me. They want to know how much I know. And so as as difficult as those phone calls can be where they're questioning me, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are such hard questions. Like I'm sweating, like, but we want those. We want the hard questions. We want the interactive and also it's okay to be nervous. We expect it. We expect that you're nervous and, it's okay to be awkward, but never, ever, 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 ever be anything other than who you are. Because, we're not going to lie to our recruits because we want to make sure they know what they're getting themselves into. And as a coach, we always appreciate the same thing in response is, tell me who you are as a person and don't sugarcoat it. Be honest. Tell me the nitty gritty. I want to know how you act and how you respond to being pushed when you're exhausted or when you're having a bad day. I want to know how you're going to handle adversity and things like that because that is what I want on my team is somebody who can handle it and who's honest and is like, listen, I'm not a perfect person, right? Like nobody's perfect. I'm not a perfect person. Here's where I've messed up in my life, but I want to swim for you and this is a program I want. So those are kind of just like my top three things is always make sure you love the school regardless of the swimming. Um, you know, always ask questions, make sure you've had questions and you research. And then, third, be yourself and have fun. You get so caught up in the process of finding the right school for you that you forget to sometimes just have fun with it. And it's scary, but if you're not having fun, that's it. It's a big sign.
What advice would you give those freshmen that are entering their first year of collegiate swimming?
Um, be as open-minded as possible. So often, and I did it myself too. You are used to a certain way of training for so long that even going through the recruiting process and hearing the different kind of training styles, and it's different than when you actually get there and you are in the middle of it. So my biggest advice is just trust the process, trust your coaching staff, even if they're doing something where you're like, oh gosh, do not want to do that. I do not trust them. Just buy in and maybe ask the question why. Not as like oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. Why am I doing this? But hey, like just wondering like how does this help me how does it make me better as a student athlete? Because just trusting the process, especially that first year, and kind of being open-minded. Um, it creates a very different experience, both socially, academically, and athletically.
What advice would you give those college athletes that are looking to get into coaching right after their collegiate swimming career?
We actually have somebody currently on the swim team right now who is wanting to become a swim coach after graduation, and we are currently working with her. She comes in once a week and she kind of just job shadows us. So if there's any seniors that want to become coaches some point, the best thing to do is to ask your head coach or assistant coach if you can just kind of come in and job shadow. They'll show you what they can, they won't show you what they can't. And you'll learn so much. I wish I would have known that I wanted to be a swim coach when I graduated, because I would have been able to go, okay, how do I write a practice? And that's something that's so simple, but for so many years as swimmers, and maybe just as other athletes, like your coaches tell you what to do for so long that then when they hand it over to you and you're a coach, and they go, okay, what do we do? And you go, I don't know, like, because you're just so used to being told, here's your practice. And so, if you're a senior going through that, like, talk to your coaches, ask if you can just job shadow for 1 hour once a week, and it's on your time, it's on their time, like, talk through those things. But with our swimmer who's doing it right now, she's already learned so much, she said. So it's been really awesome. So that's kind of my biggest piece of advice for those people who really do want to be a coach someday.
What advice would you give those future assistant coaches looking to get into college coaching, and especially on the swimming side?
Yeah, being an assistant swimming coach is it's amazing. I love it. I do. I love it. And there are times in the middle of the season where you want to push your duties off onto somebody else and you can't. And that it is rough. Our season is so long. We start in 4 days after classes start, and we don't end till March, and then we get 2 weeks off and we start swimming again. So, my biggest piece of advice for assistants is to make sure you do not lose who you are as a person. It is so easy to go, oh, okay, like I have a recruit call at home after practice, I'm just going to keep my laptop open and knock out a few emails. No, close the laptop. Like, that can happen tomorrow. Like, go socialize with your people. Like, it's making sure that we as assistants have our escape. And escape might not even be the right word, but just our own social life. Swimming it's a lot, and swimming is my world, and I love swimming. And it's good to have a social life, and to keep as assistants, our mental health is very important. We are so often the assist, or like the shoulder to cry on, the emotional support, the in between the team and the head coach. And we've got this very interesting role when it comes to our swim programs. But I just think that, especially in swimming, the burnout can be so, so heavy, that it is so important to make sure that you have your people and that you're taking care of yourself, as well as on those hard days, faking it till you make it. Because if you don't want to be there, your athletes don't want to be there. And if they know you don't want to be there, you're not going to get the good practice that you want. But also, like, it's kind of nice to not have to take responsibility for everything. The head coach can take responsibility for some stuff still. But the biggest thing is just get that group of friends, get that golf league, get the pool league, get the book club, like, have something away from work that will give you that social life, and keep you sane, quite honest, because our season, like I said, is so long and it just never stops.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with the Sioux Falls Swimming Program app?
Yes. So me personally, I have a coaching Twitter, and I need to be better at using it, but that's where I am on Twitter. I actually have to look up my Instagram or my Twitter. So it's just Coach Anna Moore. 2 N's in Anna, 2 O's in Moore. I'm on Twitter, or not really on Instagram or Facebook or anything, but our Sioux Falls is. So our Instagram is USF_swimming. And our Twitter is pretty sure the same. It's kind of sad that I have to look it up, but I'm drawing a blank, so let me look really quick. So yep, our Twitter is USF_swimming. Our Instagram is USF Cougar Swim. And our Facebook, you just look up University of Sioux Falls swimming program. And then my coaching one is at Coach Moore on Twitter.
Thank you again, Coach Anna Moore, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as the assistant swimming coach for Sioux Falls.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Anna Moore, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.